I think government technologists need to try it and learn. There is such an opportunity today that didn't exist 3 years ago to test AI in a safe environment where your data stays within your organization. It doesn't go out. And technologists need to be given the freedom to just try it.
Outwitting complexity starts here. Welcome to the GuideLine.
Nancy, welcome to GuideLine. I'm thrilled to welcome you to the show and have a chance to discuss really a timely topic, namely the experiences that CIOs across the government are currently facing. But before we jump in, I'd like to ask if you can share a little bit about your background with our listeners, which agencies you work for, and what you focus on now here at Guidehouse.
Sure. Thank you, Stu. It's nice to be here today. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Nancy Seeger, a partner at Guidehouse with oversight of the IRS account. Prior to my Guidehouse life, I spent more than 35 years in the federal government. The majority of my career was at the IRS. The last 5 years of my career at IRS was serving as the Chief Information Officer. I was a CIO during COVID, during tax reform, during a time when technology was exploding in government. So it's kind of cool to see what's going on now. I spent my last year in government at the Department of Treasury as the Chief Technology Officer with a focus on AI. That was right after a lot of the executive orders came out previously on AI, and we were trying to set the appropriate guardrails and offer freedom. Today, I get to spend time with my federal colleagues and help them move forward to the future with some of the breaking information in the CIO space.
It's an amazing history, Nancy, and I think one very relevant to those that are going to be listening in today, because there's so much change happening. Well, there's so much change that happened over your tenure in the government, and now that change seems to be accelerating at even a more rapid pace. And I think, we talk a lot of time when I'm talking to CIOs within the government, there's sort of a commercial mandate coming into the federal government, which is reinvigorating. Some of that is obviously because we've got to do more with less, and some of that is also because the technology that's coming at us, it's either adopt or defend against that technology. And I'd like to really get your thoughts on sort of that commercial mandate versus the constraints in the government. I mean, there's that clear push, but what's the tension between what the CIOs are being asked to do and what the, what the pace of innovation that's being asked for? What are those challenges you've dealt with before, and what do you think they're dealing with today?
I think it's the right time for this change in direction for tech and government. It is the right time. Move like commercial. I used to always say, in our personal lives, if an update gets pushed to us and it doesn't work, we just expect it to be fixed like that day or the next day, right? Government's expectations are a little different. Our citizens expect flawless execution. I would hope that the tension that existed prior to this redirect in government, hence governance, big G governance, where CIOs are responsible, but don't necessarily have the authority to deploy tech in a way that will serve mission. Hopefully, as the new direction emerges, some of those other changes will follow suit. And, admittedly, government is different. Government has an obligation to the citizens to be transparent. I still think that if CIOs are empowered to go with that responsibility and some of that oversight, or when you're a CIO, second guessing, I would hope that that is minimized and that CIOs can do their job and deliver tech in alignment with their missions. I haven't seen that yet, but I think if we keep it out there in the ecosystem, people will start listening and it will happen.
Well, it's funny. I'm starting to see it a little bit, but I agree with you. We're not seeing it across the board. I think there's one CIO I'm working with in the government who not only owns the CIO, but also owns the user experience of the, and in that case, you're seeing a synergy where the administrator and he are very aligned on what that looks like. And that's really, I think that's something we saw in the commercial space where CIOs, a lot of CIOs are becoming chief experience officers, right? Because reality is whether it's the internal technology or whether it's the external facing of the organization, it is the experience you're generating really comes from the technology. And I think that's one hopefully we'll see more of, because I really think, especially from the IRS perspective, it touches everybody, and it is a place where there is different levels of engagement depending on how you interact. And I think that's a place where there'd be so much goodwill, I think, as how we interface changes, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I'll use big IRS as an example. Um, in the big agencies, I think there will be a challenge um, bringing CIOs closer to experience. It's necessary. I agree with you. Why am I delivering this tech? What am I trying to achieve with it? I'm looking forward to that. I know that over the years, government tried the concept of product managers, which was their attempt to focus on experience. I do think that change in work as if you're a commercial CIO, quasi commercial, have a customer experience mindset and go for it with the tech along with your business partners will really show those of us not in government what government's capable of.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I don't think people completely get the scale. As someone that's worked in enterprise tech my entire career, right? I mean, the scale of government is some of the biggest. If they were all independent, each of the agencies would be some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies in the world, right? They're huge organizations, and they have very complex legacy technology environments as well as modern technology environments. And it is non-trivial. And I think that's what some people just don't get sometimes with the complexity of these organizations.
Right. The complexity and the fact that, in the commercial world, a CIO can make a case that if I do this, I'll generate revenue. In government, if it were that simple, the government wouldn't have legacy, but they don't get funded to eliminate legacy. They get funded to deliver new. Hence, such a complex um, technology ecosystem. I would say across government. IRS may be big, but I don't think that problem is unique to them.
Yeah, that
So,
makes sense. Well, let's talk about, you mentioned, your work with AI before you left the government. And I think obviously now a lot of the conversation we have is around AI, and there's promise and there's hype and there's overpromise and there's fear and there's all the things that are out there. And unfortunately, I think there's too much fear out there, but fear is driving some of the questions, especially with some of the recent announcements with some of the models coming out. But when you really think about AI, if you put your chief experience hat on or your CIO hat or others, when you think about what the promise of AI is, what vision do you paint out there for people that they should take?
I think that I'll paint a vision for government technologists, and I'll be bold and talk about citizen users, right? Those who are having the experience. I think government technologists need to try it and learn. There is such an opportunity today that didn't exist 3 years ago to test AI in a safe environment where your data stays within your organization. It doesn't go out. And technologists need to be given the freedom to just try it. I contend that their true technologists are doing it at home, right? They're not being invited. They think it's cool and they're doing it. My vision or hope for government is that they bring that same entrepreneur philosophy inside to how can I make my job easier so that I can focus on the hard stuff? And how can I deliver an experience to the citizen that the citizen might want? And how do we help users of technology to appreciate you're getting this faster because we used automation, but here's your out if automation doesn't work, right? And I do think there's still a level of fear in government and AI. I like to believe that that's because they don't have the time to explore it, not
Yeah.
not for any other reason than I haven't had a chance to stop and figure this out and how we can use it. And, we want technology to move fast. We also have to realize that true technologists are always learning. They're always upskilling so that they can do the next thing and not just stay here. And I don't know, Stu, you could probably say this better than I can today. Do we give our technologists that space to have time to grow and evolve and upskill as technology is flying away from us?
It's an excellent point, and I love that you put it out there that way, because true technologists, and look, I mean, there are people that want to do their thing and just, and plug and chug and be whatever, but the true technologists want to play and want to get better and want to learn. The reason you went into this business was because you were a learner by nature and an experimenter by nature. And you don't, the only thing that takes that away is if you don't give them the tools. I like what you're saying. We need to give those that frankly know our systems best and those that like to build the chance to optimize and build. And I think if we do that, what we'll find is we'll get some really good use cases. And I also think, one, you also have better retention of talent. I think talent wants to feel like they have an opportunity to learn and make things better. And I also think it helps with the messaging. I think when it comes to adoption of AI, I've spoke with many, in the commercial space, many C-suite board directors and others around adoption. And I'm like, you talk about AI like it's a tech. And yes, we will talk about, this model or that model or where the data sits. All that's very important. And that's really for the technologist to help you with. But it's a change conversation. And I think that's the part where, there will be people that will be experimenters in the tech space that hopefully will help build that vision. But then we've got to be able to articulate that to the users and get the users excited about. So I'd love to get your thought around that, because as someone that was the bridge between the technology side of the business and the business side of the business, how do you think we can do a better job there? And especially in the government.
Invite the business side in to do it too. I mean, we're talking about tech that you probably don't need an engineering degree to be effective at. Why wouldn't we look outside of traditional technology organizations to those business owners to think about how they can use these tools and take some work off the plate of the technologists and the technology organization? Invite them in. We don't want them, invite them in with the right guardrails, right? Don't be telling the CIOs, what models to use, what environments to use, but give those business customers some flexibility that they've always wanted so that they can deliver that change faster. That would be one thing I would explore, how to remind them those existing guardrails you have today are probably good enough. Don't do all those things that we know cause risk to your environment, but let non-IT professionals take on some of that intriguing tech that's being put in front of all of us now.
I think that's great. And, we had this promise over the years of the citizen developer and whatever, but the reality was the citizen developer in the past was still clunky. It was conceptually there, but still relatively clunky. But with the AI tools we have now, we can actually have citizen developers. I'm an analogy guy, so I always like those. I use an analogy. It's like we're bringing ingredients to their kitchen and they're the chefs. They know their customers, they know their patterns, they know their street, they know their menu. And so we're bringing them things that they may be able to put this spice in their new dish, or they may be able to make a new dish. And that's the part when you just see the magic happen. And I think that's true citizen development in a lot of ways. And I think to your point, it democratizes technology in a way that we've never had before. I've never loved the term low code, no code, because I always thought that was almost too techy.
Right.
It's citizen development to me is right. It's like you just, and it is, it when you know it. And I agree with you. I think it's a great way to go.
And that's our future, right? And Steve, 2 years from now, people are going to look at you and I and say, citizen developer, this is just how I do my job, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we want tech to be. We want tech to be available to all and have certain tech available to the engineers because you need that engineering discipline, and other tech available to all who are trying to drive that customer experience.
Yeah. It's funny. I was watching a podcast the other day, one of the AI podcasts, and they were talking about how, they were meeting with some customers and they were going to go back and they wanted to meet with the next level next time they went back, and their AI, and they were using OpenCloud, but their AI was like, would you like me to build you a CRM to manage that? And it's like, yeah. And it's like, you don't think about it just builds a CRM to manage that interface. You didn't need to buy a CRM package because it was like solving a point problem in a very simple way without all the clunkiness. You can do that with tooling where you're staying within the guard. To your point, I love what you said about the guardrails, because I think this is the part that everybody freaks out about. They're like, we got to put everything needs these guardrails. No, as long as you walled off the fence, the kids can play. Exactly. You know what I mean? That in the nicest way, right? You're not going to, they touch the fence, well, no, but, and this is where the enterprise really becomes interesting.
Right. And as long as you build that fence, your kids will be safe, right? They'll be
Exactly.
safe. And
Exactly. Exactly.
that's what people need to understand. I used to say, go try to break it then. Let's see if you can break it.
Yeah.
Isn't that, where we should put the tools out there? And you and I both know this move to platform. Just about every platform comes with their set of tools. So you don't even have to go acquire something else. You have to have help guiding you through the skills part. The tools are
Yeah.
there.
There's so much untapped value in the tools we already have, which, it's
Exactly. Yeah.
I've never had more fun in my career than when I've worked with CIOs to untap existing spend. And when they deliver that value to the business or the
Right.
client's like, where did you get the budget for this? Like, no, we already had these. We just
We had
assembled
it.
them in a different way. We made a new recipe, and it's now number one on the menu. It's special every
Right.
day.
I
Um,
think one of the biggest government breakthroughs was tooling in the cloud.
yeah,
Now that you're in the cloud, what you can do without having to pull in acquisitions, pull in, the hardware folks. It's right
yeah.
there.
Well, let's talk about talent for a minute because I think we talked about the experimenters, we talked about the business. Obviously in the federal government, a couple of things a challenge. Number one is obviously we've had a refresh of talent in the last year or so. So we've had some tenured talent that is now retired, and we've got other talent that is, we need new talent in the government. And how do we rebuild? How do we attract the talent you were talking about, which is the experimenter, some of the best tech? Because the best tech talent in the world, a lot of them, they don't always think government first. I'm wondering, how do we get them excited about that? What do we look for?
I think government, with all this opportunity being put in front of CIOs today to work more commercial oriented, we first of all do the very basic things. Y- You know, some people are going to start chuckling when they hear me say this in the podcast. Don't bring people in and put them in a cube. Change the way people work.
Yeah.
Government is excited about having people come back to the office. Yay. Make that office environment a meaningful, experiential, so that all these smart tech people can feed off of each other, right? Very basic thing, no cost. You can do that, right? Somebody in my organization had a power drill. They just came in and started taking down walls and cubicles. I was like, okay, we'll just act like I'm not seeing that. I think the other thing that government needs to do in the skill space, they lost institutional knowledge. The future is to bring in different tech, so requirements aren't embedded in the tech. Figure that one out. I think that the answers, I'm going to say this, aren't as hard as we think they are in upskilling our people. It's a big government, so it's a lot, which makes things challenging. But if you break down those small components, how do I attract people? I make coming to work enjoyable. Put them with people who are very, very focused forward in tech. Give them something new to do that is meaningful and not a test and not training. Hey, Stu, go build me this. Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not going to be a proof of concept. It's not going to be a pilot. It's going to be iteration one of something really cool. And I think that will excite people. I also think that government needs to look differently at recruiting. Why wouldn't we look at tech high school level people
Agreed.
as opposed to people with 4-year degrees? I think that our future in tech is going to be at that level.
I could not agree more. I think the future in tech is at that level. I think,
Yeah.
this, you see some of the big platforms like Palantir and other talk about this, Andrew and others, where they're like, I'd rather get somebody that's tech curious in high school and train them because I can make them better technologists. And the reality is I think the education landscape is shifting. And what's interesting about this, and I have a 24-year-old and a 21-year-old. So, as you look at that's sort of the first AI enabled cohorts to come out. And they're at the tail end of that. They were the ChatGPT end, but what's coming next is going to be learners that know how to learn. I was talking to my daughter about this as she gets ready to graduate in May, and I'm like, when I'm going to start looking for people to hire, I'm going to start looking for people that come with a workforce with them, and that workforce is agentic, right? And knowing how to orchestrate it. It doesn't mean you need to be a coder, and she's not. But I think the idea of like understanding how to orchestrate a team of your own which normally you would have spent time to learn when you get here. You now can bring your own team and you can say, here's what I did and how I orchestrated. And I think if you find those people, that talent will do amazing things in your organization.
Right. And they're not coders. I'm trying not to say this, but it came out. I don't know that even there's a place for coders in our future, given the tools that we have, right?
Yeah.
If you think requirements with AI, you do need to know how to troubleshoot code maybe, but I think it's going to be a different skill set, you know?
I think it's a developer skill set, not a coder skill set. I think that's
Yes.
the difference.
Yes.
We're talking about and this is where I think, we're going to need more CS degrees than ever, but they're going to be different. You're back to my point. You're an orchestrator now, and you've got to understand. Yeah, you've got to understand what tech is. You got to understand. I mean, we still need software engineers to understand how the memory works, how the data works, and what's the best way to architect. But once we sort of got those pieces figured out,
Right.
call it vibe coding, call it what you want. But I mean, the idea of being able to if one old coder that could have done X amount of code can now do 10 things simultaneously by being an orchestrator.
Right.
I mean, builders love that, right? I mean, they love that.
Yeah. Our success will not be how many lines of code did you generate today, right?
No,
Exactly.
it will not. It will be how many applications did you build today?
Exactly. What new capabilities or features did you deploy?
I think the one advantage we now have is all of this happening right now for the federal government. I'd like to get your thought on this, right? We're now at a point where the technology leaps. They don't have to go through the SaaS era and the PaaS era and everything else. Everybody wants, they can go straight to this new world of working, which I think is actually a huge advantage because you're not going to have a lot of unwound tech debt from the last 5 to 7 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. I agree. And it's really projecting, where am I going to be 2 years from now? Where do I need to be? And how do I need to be thinking in that way? I remember somebody I worked with about 10 years ago who just kept walking the halls saying, it's all going to be about the data. It's all going to be about the data. It was about the
It's all about the data. It's all about the data.
Exactly. Find those people who are like, it's all going to be about this. It's all going to be about this. And CIOs go there, right? Take your workforce there and figure out, how do we get there? What are the next 2 things? People would say, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. Go find those next 2 things and go there. And that really is my hope with all this change focused on federal CIOs. What a great opportunity to be a federal CIO. If all of the baggage of the past goes away as they bring in the new expectations, lighten up governance, govern outcomes, maybe not, CIO, how do I know you're spending the right amount of money on a data center? Really? Lighten up governance and give your IT professionals, treat them like IT professionals. Give them the space they need to continue to grow and learn and enjoy their jobs, and focus on that customer experience, whoever your customer is, whether it's a vet or an airman or a taxpayer. That magic mix all has to come together. The CIO expectations are out there. How does government deliver that? What else has to happen to deliver that?
Your point on data is so right. I mean, I've been screaming this for a while. Like, the data is the currency of the future. And what was interesting, what you said, and where I've seen really unlock with the OpenClaw era and the NemoClaw and those kind of stuff, is where I think enterprise will go. Now, OpenClaw is not enterprise. I want to make sure if anybody out there hits the comments and says, that's crazy. But, there's a reason why Microsoft and NVIDIA and others are trying to build this out, because the idea of how OpenClaw works is basically you construct an intelligent computer that is yours, that has memory and compute layer and GPU layer. We're going to do the same thing in enterprise, where those layers are intelligent in and of themselves, regardless of the systems that are in it. The data feeds it. Now, the interesting thing about that, and I think this will be really huge for government and also regulated organizations, is the data can stay in situ. This is really important. We've moved data around too much. Whenever you move data, it costs money. And whenever you move data, you risk it, right? And also you duplicate it and it gets watered down. Our ability to leave the data where it sits, secure, wherever that is, but get the intelligence out of it without moving it, is going to be the unlock that is just going to take this to the next level, I think.
Totally agree with you. Don't move it around. Don't copy it. Don't have your own, and just start using it now. Government would say it's not perfect. It's not, you're going to work on making it perfect, or you're going to use it and make it perfect. Just get in there and use it. I think that focus and this change around platforms, drive your data the right way. Don't forget about security. Come on. Where I came from, IRS has access to the country's tax records, your data, my data. We cannot get so excited about tech without saying some of those guardrails are, cybersecurity practices, getting ready for quantum. Just kind of put that out there too, with all these great ideas in the future. Think about what your guardrails are. Think about your guiding principles. Leave my data where it is. Have everybody come to the data. Field of dreams, right? So, I'm excited about the future.
I am too. Well, look, Nancy, I always end this asking one question. So I want to wrap up each episode asking, so what is your guideline? So if you had one guiding principle that you could leave out there with our listeners today, what would you say it is?
My guideline for technology professionals is just do it. Just do it. In government, my former colleagues, in IRS and Treasury, just do it. And if it's the right thing, it's the right thing. Maybe you'll learn from it. You learn a lot from it not being the right thing. So I say I leave people with just do it.
I love that. I mean, for me, it's what gets me up every day. It's why I still do what I do, because I love to just do it, and I love the learning that's coming in. I think if you inspire that in your teams, what I learned from that, if you inspire your teams, and if you show your team that that's what you're doing, the work product you get out is so different. So,
exactly.
Nancy, thank you. This is awesome. It was a great conversation. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
The GuideLine is a podcast brought to you by Guidehouse. For more episodes, click here or subscribe to our channel to stay up to date. To see more from Guidehouse, head to our website, guidehouse.com.